Hello everyone and welcome to my repair video of the Syma S102 indoor heli. Now, the first thing we're going to do is remove the faceplate there, and we're going to very carefully remove the stock battery that was installed at the factory. And if you're going to use a screwdriver or anything to pry it out, just be very careful. You don't want to puncture the battery. It could cause an explosion or a fire. And then after you get the battery loose with some cutters, cut each wire individually and cut as close to the battery as you can, so you leave yourself as much wire as possible to play with in case you make a mistake or for when you do your soldering. And I've seen different techniques for this, but what I like to do is use a very sharp razor and then just kind of very carefully roll the wire against the sharp razor, and again very carefully pull the wire stripping off without pulling the wire off. It's very thin wire, so it's gonna have to be very careful when you do this. And then twist the little frayed wire ends. And then what I like to do here is tin the wires. This will kind of basically get them primed for soldering, and put a little solder on the soldering iron first, then just move it on to the wire there and let it cool off. And do each side, do the red and the black. Now I have a replacement battery here from Banggood. This is the Syma S107 3.7 volt 150 milliamp LiPo battery, supposedly the same as the factory one, not the upgraded one. I wouldn't go for an upgraded battery in this particular heli because it's extremely lightweight plastic, and I think the additional weight might make it fly a little funny, and there's not really any reason to put an upgraded battery in. You know, maybe it will give you 30 seconds or a minute of additional flight time. I think the additional weight of the battery and the additional power are pretty much a wash, so I would stick with the original batteries in most of these indoor helis. Maybe with the 107 you could go with the upgraded one because it's got a nice large front end to put it in, and I think it probably could carry the additional weight, but I haven't actually tried it. So place the rubber coating on the far end of the battery, and then we're going to want to align the red to the red with the tinned wire, and use your fingers or use whatever you can to get these two wires as close to joined as you can, and then add a little bit of solder to the tip of the iron, and it should melt right on there pretty easily. Now, I'm not an experienced solderer. In fact, this is the first time I've ever soldered anything, but I watched a few YouTube videos, and you know, figured how hard could it be, and figured try to save this helicopter for a $3 battery, and maybe teach myself how to solder in the process. So as you see, not a beautiful job, but you know, the main thing is that the connection's made and that the connections are safe from touching each other. So that's why, if you're not gonna, you can use electric tape, but I think that that this rubber coating just works a lot better and it looks a lot neater. And here's the part you want to be very careful about. You know, tuck the other end of the cable away and do a quick heating source here, just a second on each one, and you see how that coating starts to shrink. Be very careful to not get the battery hot, because that could explode. So very carefully heat up the rubber coating, the shrink coating, and there you have a nice neat look. And so now that connection is secure and safe, we're free to now strip the black connector, and I'll do it the same way, using a very sharp razor and kind of rolling the wire very carefully and very slowly till you get till you get it. You know, just work it slow. It's very easy to pull this wire right off along with the coating, so you want to make sure that you have a good cut first before you try to pull it, otherwise you'll just pull the whole thing. And then twist the wire end. We put the small piece of shrink wrap down to the far end of the battery, and we want to keep the battery kind of as far away as we can from the heat source, from both the soldering and from using the lighter to shrink the wrapping. And again, here I'm by no means an expert solderer, but I think it's a lot easier to solder two wires together than it is to solder wires to a board. At least that's been my experience so far. So I think, you know, tinning the wires and helps, and add a little heat, add a little solder, make sure that connection solidifies. Just give it a few seconds or a minute to cool off, and then very carefully remove the helicopter from whatever you have that's holding it. And I think that ought to do it. If you've ever seen anyone that's really good at this, you know, they do it so quickly you can't even see what's happening. And unfortunately, I'm not at that level yet, but hopefully I'll get better at this. And you want to very carefully slide the coating up over your soldering job without pulling the wires. This would be a lot easier if these wires were just a little thicker, but they are so thin that it's very easy to break this at any point. So the key word is carefully, slowly, safety first. Hold that battery away from the flame as far as you can, and just do little quick 1 second bursts until that wrap shrinks over and you have a nice, neat connection with no chance of the black and red connectors touching each other. And put the battery back where the original one was. I don't have the kind of double sticky tape that they had with it, so I'm just going to use a little piece of green electric tape just to kind of hold it in place and keep it from jostling around. And I'm going to put a second piece on there just to make sure. Especially when it crashes, I don't want that battery to start moving around. And then getting the faceplate or the hood back on is a little tricky. Probably, maybe if you have smaller fingers than me, you might have an easier time with this, but yeah, I worked with it for a little while, and I couldn't quite get it in exactly the way the factory had it in, but it's in enough. It's good enough for me, I guess. And then put it to the test and turn it on, and there it goes. Amazing. So, little cheap $3 repair job. Puts your indoor heli back up in the air. Not bad.